Oh, it's for the stagger. Oh. I can keep this in battle. Oh, you guys.
We're live.
What has to be done by? Oh, okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the study session of the University City Council to order on January 13th, 2025. Prior to turning the program over to the city manager, are there requests or any changes to the agenda at this time that you've not already spoken with the city manager about? If not, Mr. Rose, I know you've got one.
I would recommend moving item K1 to the first item up under the city manager's report. Mayor Crowe and council members, I appreciate having the opportunity to discuss what we are proposing for the work plan for 2025 through 2027 tonight with you. I've been working with the department directors to develop this work plan. And as you review it, you may notice, those of you that have seen the prior work plan, that it's a slightly different format. We've included an area for status updates. The reason for that is to provide you with more frequent updates on what's going on with the various projects within a particular fiscal year. Also, we believe that it will be a better tool for tracking ultimately the projects that you approve. Having the work plan discussion during this time period, as many of you know, we will shortly get very deep into the budget process. And so to understand what your priorities are at this time will enable us to incorporate those priorities into the budget and to recommend an allocation of funding to achieve those priorities. So as I go through this, please don't hesitate to stop me if you have questions. This is simply the first part of the presentation. My intention is during your January 27th meeting to finish this up. So I think we'll have plenty of time. I want to move to the economic development portion. The work plan was put together based upon the priorities that have been long established for the mayor and council. Economic development, the creation of a quarterly ED report. We're projecting the start date for that the 25th. The reason for that is we're tying some of these projects, especially economic development, into bringing on board, assuming that the mayor and council approves that tonight, an economic development manager. So that's why they are out a few months. I believe that providing you with at least a quarterly report on what the activity is so that everyone on the council understands the projects that we are working on, as well as we'll have the opportunity to share that information with the community. Several months after arriving here, we established a business retention program because of the COVID that program ultimately wasn't focused on. We're proposing to bring that back, as well as the creation of a recruitment program. We've long tried to obtain a capital improvement program for the loop, proposing to include that as a priority starting in July of this year. And that will be headed by the Deputy City Manager for Development, assuming that the structure that has been proposed for the organization ultimately is approved. Olive Boulevard, a similar situation with it, the need for a capital improvement program. One of the things that we'll need to discuss. Do you all have all of this information? I want to make sure. Guess I should go back. Want to ensure that we have a plan in place that you as a council agree to, and then establishing a capital improvement program for Olive Boulevard. You may recall that there's about $5 million as a result of the marketed olive development that's being set aside to improve Olive Boulevard. And in addition to that, there are other economic development retail sales tax that can be used for that purpose. But first, we need to understand exactly what it is, what's the vision for Olive, and then create a capital improvement program that would enable us to achieve that vision. We'd still like to pursue a minority and women entrepreneur program, as well as updating the list of properties that are within the city that we own, as well as that are privately owned. Up under public safety, identifying a site for police and fire. This would be a joint satellite facility that would be housed somewhere on the west side, recognizing that it will be some time before I believe you're in a financial position to build anything like that because of the commitment that you've made to the police headquarters and court. But identifying it as a need, and perhaps most importantly, also setting aside property that in the future a facility could be built on. The construction of the police and court facilities, recommend that be a priority. That project, as you know, is well underway. Evaluate community paramedics program. That's something that prior to advancing that, we'll need to work with the state legislature in order to get a bill adopted that would allow for our fire department to provide those services. You might recall that we had discussed briefly the idea of pursuing the quarter-cent sales tax for fire that could be used to supplement some of the costs for this program. I would expand that to say some of the costs for this program and other equipment that will be needed by the fire department in the future. And establishing a vacant building fee. We looked at some of the other jurisdictions. I think St. Louis in particular, that seems to be ratcheting up, trying to encourage building owners to make use of those buildings. And so this would be something similar to that. Right now, it's just a concept, but what we're proposing is that you give us the authorization to do a deeper dive into that possible policy, with the end result being to have fewer vacant buildings within the city. Annual emergency preparedness training for city staff. We've discussed the quarter-cent fire a sales tax for the paramedic healthcare services program, as well as the potential use for other fire equipment, installation of the light license reader, as well as potential use of robotics within the police department, as well as the fire department. I think it goes without saying that increasingly there are fewer and fewer people, especially within the police department, that seem to have an interest in policing as a profession. And so if we have fewer and fewer people that are willing to take that on as a career, then we need to look at other ways that we can provide public safety services that is not as much human resources, human capital intense. And that can only occur through innovation, through using other mechanisms such as robotics, possibly, and there may be other options as well. But what this report will do is I've asked Chief Hampton to work with his staff to prepare a report that outlines, here are some of the options that you might consider that would be used for supplementing the efforts of our officers. So we're recommending that as a project as well. Any questions on any of those before I move forward? Okay. Yes.
I think Blaine has. You maybe can use Dennis's.
Okay, well, it's not working, but
Dennis, can he use yours?
very.
It's working.
Oh,
Didn't have a battery.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Here, I'll take that one.
Okay. No, very quickly, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood. If you go back to economic development and go back to the loops CIP, but you're saying now, so the loop has a CID, right? Or I just need to understand, you have the Loop Special Business District and they have a tax. So what is that exactly? And what would be the difference between the two?
When we're looking, Mayor Crow, Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson, the concept is to better use the EDRST funding for infrastructure, long-term projects within the loop and also within Olive Boulevard, and where the Loop Special Business District has a separate tax. It doesn't generate enough revenue to cover what I believe are some of the capital needs that exist. And so they annually make a request for things like, trash bins and other activities or events that might happen there, such as the Loop Ice Carnival, but not a real focus on exactly what are the capital needs. Like, should there be an entrance monument that recognizes, you've arrived in University City's Loop? I think that what's important is to have the discussion. I don't know what the answers would be, but at least preparing a capital improvement program would result in generating a discussion about what is the loop? What should it be? What is it today? What will it be in the future? And what are the capital needs to achieve that future vision of the loop? So that's the idea.
So do we necessarily have to distinguish between the two? Meaning, is it necessary to have the Loop CIP and then the Olive CIP, when in fact you're saying that you're going to be using EDRST funding to help fund both those? I mean, it doesn't, so I'm just saying, does there have to be a distinction between the two? Because we're using the same fund.
Is it a requirement? No, but I do believe that both have their own culture that exists. Culture for Olive Boulevard and a culture for the Loop. And I believe that having separate capital improvement programs probably highlights both of those areas more so than combining them and aggregating them up under simply one city capital improvement program. That's just my thought, but certainly, if it was the desire of the mayor and council to just have one CIP, then yeah, you can certainly do that.
Okay, and very quickly, just to ask the question, moving forward, update list of property inventory, city-owned and privately owned. Can you explain privately owned?
Yeah, we want to have a better idea of what is the property that's available for development within the city. We think we have some idea of what that is now, but we would do a review, an audit, if you will, of vacant properties. So that when we get calls from potential businesses, they're asking us, is there a place for us to locate within University City? We'll have an answer for them.
Okay, well, I'll leave it at that right for now and let you continue with the report. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Encouraging high quality growth. Some of these projects you are familiar with because they have started and initiated in some way. Improve the landlord property manager registration list. Solid waste rate study that's underway. The status update is, as you know, you've created the task force to provide you with a second recommendation regarding solid waste rates. Report on the architectural board, which is underway. Believe that that's planned for February of this year is when Dr. Wagner will do a presentation giving you an update on where that project stands. Establishing the third ward revitalization program. That project has been underway since June of 22, and you've held a study session, and you are I'm recommending a final action on accepting the program that was created for you during your regular session tonight. Evaluating, developing dedicated bike lanes, you're familiar with. Update the zoning code. That's the next project. You've recently, excuse me, updated your comprehensive plan. So the next phase is the update of the comfort of the zoning code, which was included in this fiscal year's budget and has been, an RFP has been distributed. Evaluation of sustainability plan. This is for the Green Practice Commission, an evaluation of the plan to ensure that it's achieving what you are desiring that it achieves. Also with the ability to make modifications if you believe that it's appropriate. It's been some time since the plan was drafted. I think just a review of that to make sure that it's still in the policy that you would like to achieve. Yes.
Honorable Mayor, my fellow council members, I would also give us to consider that some matters of sustainability can also be considered under economic development because of the cost savings to various businesses and so on. So I just offered that as a suggestion.
Yeah. Implementation of online licensing payments, study of the greenhouse gas inventory. That's something that will be led by the Deputy City Manager for Development. Examine consolidating the boards, committees, and commissions, which is a project that I would work with John Mulligan and Lorette Reese on to identify whether there is overlap with some of the boards, committees, commissions that you have, and if there's enough overlap, should there be a merging of some of those boards, committees, or commissions. strengthening the property maintenance code, evaluating University Heights proposed stormwater ordinance. That is underway. Yes.
Advancing.
I can't see it.
Okay,
I'm blind.
I don't think that is advanced.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Maybe I should come in some. That's better. Evaluating University Heights proposed stormwater ordinance. We will provide you with an update here shortly on where that project stands. Briefly, it's being evaluated by your planning commission at this time in a subcommittee of the planning commission. And so you'll get a more in-depth briefing about that project once the subcommittee and the planning commission has concluded with their work. Up under the policy or priority of prudent fiscal management, the evaluation of purchasing cards, developing a fleet management program. You are aware that fleet operations was not too recently, I guess maybe 6 to 8 months, maybe longer than that, was placed up under fire. Which is doing an outstanding job in managing that operation for us. But there may be other programs, other pieces of equipment that is needed within that operation, within that division. This project simply says we need to develop a comprehensive fleet management program. And that's something that I know Chief Henson is already working on. Updating on accounting policies and procedure, a report to the city manager on developing a designated automated phone line to take payments. And creation of an asset management strategy and education. We recently brought on board a purchasing manager. So this project has been on the books for some time, but really no resources to advance it. Now that the purchasing manager is on board, we should be able to advance this. The asset management, for those of you who may not be as familiar with that type of a program, simply is a coding of each asset that you have, from desk, computers, cars, all of those things into a program so that we can better track the usage of those assets and when repurchasing is needed. Examine the feasibility of consolidating some services with other jurisdictions. There may be an opportunity for us to look at the organization areas where there is not such a distinction between University City or Clayton or Richmond Heights in how we conduct those types of programs. And these are just examples that I would throw out. Fleet management, for example, we all need our cars repaired. I don't know that most jurisdictions would care where they take those cars as long as they're serviced properly. So IT, for example, another area where we might benefit from looking at it for at least, I won't say completely regional, but on multiple jurisdictions. So I think there are other areas where it might make sense that we partner with other jurisdictions that would result in a lower cost for us. But we would be looking at those kind of support services to see what makes sense. And where can we save taxpayers' funds and still provide the level of services that our residents expect, but at a lesser cost. Creation of a communication policy. We have a communications manager on board, so we'll be able to advance that project. Creation of a citywide performance measurements. I think when I first started, some of you didn't participate in that interview process. Some of you did. But I talked about the three pillars for a successful organization. One is ensuring that you have a clear vision. The other is establishing those priorities that would enable you to achieve that vision. And then thirdly is to monitor, how are you performing? Are you achieving it? Are you off track or not? That's what this project is intended to do, is to establish performance measurements so that we can ensure that we are performing in the manner that you would expect us and that we are achieving that vision that you have laid out. Creation of web page, connect residents to senior services. This is for our senior, primarily for our senior commission. Establish a stormwater master plan that's underway, create road and sidewalk condition rating analysis. That has been a fledgling project for some time. I've asked Marilla to place more emphasis on that. Okay. Update the personnel policies. That's a project that's underway. Is much more labor intensive than what I think I've ever imagined, as well as City Attorney Mulligan and Human Resources Director Amy Williams, trying to work through that, through those policies, but we're making good progress. Annually conduct the Gallup employee survey. If you recall, you provided resources to conduct multiple surveys. Amy Williams is heading that project up, and we're making good progress on that. We'll provide you with better status updates on exactly where we are at a later date. Improve employee pension program. We have one that is now at roughly 94% funded, which is outstanding considered where it started. We still have some wood to cut regarding the police pension. I think that we all understand some of the challenges, and as we get deeper into salary survey, compensation survey, really, that's one of the things that I'll end up wanting to talk with you more about. Included on this, in this document, is simply the salary survey update. But I believe that as a part of that, we need to bring someone, a firm on board that can evaluate the police pension system, compare it to what other jurisdictions are doing, not just throughout the region, but throughout the state, and identify what is the best mechanism for improving that pension. We know that the way that it's structured today simply does not work. And so I'll be recommending that we do something different. Thank you. I'm struggling with like squinting. Creation of the summer camp program. Darren Gertler is working to provide you with a update. This is at the next council meeting on what we're proposing for that. You've had one work session regarding the program, asked us to make some modifications to it. We have done that. I believe he's also had some discussions with the Parks Commission to get their input, and it's ready for you to take a look at what we believe will be the final program during your January work session. As a part of that, I'm hoping that long-term we'll be able and you will agree to the creation of free memberships for school district students with certain GPAs and or attending summer school to better use our facilities to encourage higher education, greater focus on learning. Also proposing to conduct a resident satisfaction survey for the next budget year. You have in the past agreed to do those every other year. And so next fiscal year would be the time for that. That concludes the presentation for what is being proposed, and I would be happy to respond to any questions, additional questions that you have.
Mr. Clay.
Thank you, Mayor Curley. Thank you, City Manager Rose, for your presentation. Couple things. In reference to the Olive Boulevard and the Loop CIPs, so we currently have a number of plans. We have economic development plans, the comprehensive plan, proposed CIP. How are these knitting together? How do you, what's your vision of these plans working in concert?
Mayor Crowe, Councilmember Clay.
Not to mention the third ward plan.
In part, that's why I think a restructuring of the organization is needed so that you have an executive level that's really overseeing all of those plans and ensuring that each department is doing what they should be doing to ensure that we are executing those plans. For the comprehensive plan up under planning and zoning, having one individual that has responsibility across the board for all of that. But I do believe also that those plans fall short in some ways on being very specific about where should this bike lane be, or what type of light should we use along the Olive corridor? Now, we even have a plan for that that's very dated though. And so part of it may just be reviewing that plan. If you still agree that this is still the vision for Olive Street, for example, then we would simply execute on that plan. But I believe that having that discussion, because it is so dated, is important to have. Because there may be very different perspectives on what Olive should look like today versus 25 years ago.
So so the answer to the question about knitting these plans together, and I forgot about the Olive standards. I forgot about that plan. Is having an individual in a restructuring would address that one person would kind of be in charge of this and would see where there's synergies between the plans, where they might be in conflict, and where that conflict might have to be resolved. There would be a person who would be looking at that. Is that a
I
fair
believe that's
interpretation?
part of it. I also believe that's why the creating a work plan that's updated annually is an important component as well.
Okay. Couple other things quickly. working with other jurisdictions, while this might not fall directly under that, there has been conversation here and there about monetizing a transfer station, and having that become a revenue stream. We have other jurisdictions who, at least at one time, may have had some interest. Does this perhaps fall in that category? Is that something different?
I believe that as a part of the rate study, solid waste rate study, you'll get some information on that. One of the reasons that I'm proposing having a lower level director for that will oversee solid waste is because that individual should be able to market solid waste as well, not just the transfer station, but exploring whether it is reasonable to look at other jurisdictions. Now, this may sound bad to some of you, but whether we should compete with the private sector for the removal of trash for other jurisdictions. The idea is, how can we reduce our overall cost so that we can provide a higher level of service to the residents here? And one way of doing that is by getting economies based upon the equipment and the personnel that we have.
Yep, I agree. And finally, very supportive, could not be more supportive of the women and minority entrepreneurship program. And this may be a question for Attorney Mulligan. Given the political environment and given what's about to happen in the upcoming week, are we worried about challenges associated with a program like that? Legal challenges?
Yeah, I will defer to our city attorney Mulligan, but I will also share with you my own personal thought is that cause DEI is unpopular for certain people. I don't believe that we should stray from what is simply a reality. It's needed. You know, I wish that I were in a position to say that we don't need any diversity or equality or inclusion programs. That would be the gold standard for me. But the reality is that those types of programs are still needed. And until they are not needed, I think I would certainly recommend that you continue to pursue.
And I agree, but we know the winds have changed, and so
There may be no federal dollars for what ultimately gets approved. But because it's under the area of economic development, you may not need federal dollars at this point. And the idea would be to start small anyway, to make sure that we know exactly what we're doing, and then to grow the program as appropriate to do so. John, I've said that. Are we in any legal trouble? Am I going to get cited or sued?
I think that there certainly are opportunities to promote women and minority entrepreneurship within the confines of the law. But we need to study that further before we be able to make specific recommendations.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to dovetail something that Honorable Mayor and my fellow council members that Councilmember Place had. In fact, we were just discussing this today with the local pastor. And one of the things I have often thought as a longtime resident of this city, lifelong resident of this city, is that people often mistaken what they think of liberalism of University City, which is really a kind of egalitarian tolerance, more so than a liberalism. And I think that what do you want to call that, DEI or tolerance? It's us. And I think we can no more shed that and set that aside than we can set aside this building or anything else. It is simply who we are as an identity, as a community. And if people want to call it DEI, I'll fall on that sword. You know, I mean, but I think that really it is a kind of tolerance. We tolerate immigration, we tolerate people of different races, different religions, and that's who we are.
I think it's hard to imagine a world where equity is a bad thing. So, yeah.
Mr. Smuggler, did you have a,
Well, I was gonna.
oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Fuller, I apologize.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rose. Just going back of the focus on economic development of our two windows. And it's probably inherent in the plan, but I just want to make sure the people in these other economic development areas, like along north and south of Del Mar on the other end, that's in that plan as well. When we talk about the economic development, we're not just talking about the loop and the Olive Corridor. We've got these other businesses that we have to consider. That's in the plan.
That's correct. When we discuss economic development, it's from a global perspective, it goes throughout our city, even including what I would hope to be is improving our industrial park at some point. We took a swipe at that with a jurisdiction, neighboring jurisdiction that wasn't accepted, but I think that there are still some projects that we could do on our own that would make it more appealing.
Mr. Smuggler.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Very quickly, I just have two things. And the first thing is, I've kind of just thought about this tonight when I saw Councilmember McMahon's email. And that was about, I think it was Sirius asking about putting some things from the comprehensive plan. And what I wanted to simply say is that, and that's what made me think, when you have these ideals or these suggestions that you're working on in your work plan, if you could add another category or kind of let us know at the next meeting where these came from. Meaning, did creation of quarterly ED report or something, did that come from the comprehensive plan? Did that come from council? You know, because it kind of helps in giving us an example of where these are generated, where these ideas are generated from. Meaning, so like, did it come from the comprehensive plan, or did it come from a commission's recommendation? Because again, I don't know, or are these something that you're looking at trying to get developed, if you understand what I'm saying? So, and then the second part of that is, if you could explain very briefly, why do you think that we would need a satellite station on the west end when we are in the position that we are in now in renovating the annex and giving the police a home? If you could explain that.
I don't know if Chief Hampton, I'll let Chief Hampton respond to that, but in part, I believe that it's based upon the build out of the west area, especially with, you look at the businesses that will be there, that will be heavy revenue generating businesses, Costco, Target, Dearborg's, but revenue comes from people. And so that means that you're going to have a significant amount of people that will be in that area as well. So the worst thing that can happen is that we find ourselves in a position where we're not as prepared as what we would like to be to ensure the safety of those individuals there. So this is forward looking. We know that, you know, those businesses are not going to be built tomorrow. But in the future, we're simply seeing that as more and more people are in that area, we want to ensure that we have the resources dedicated to that area to make sure that people are safe.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose pretty much covered the point that we have the gift and the curse of two different business districts on each and opposite ends of the town. With the west end being a very expansive business district that is steady growing, along with, you know, we know we have more businesses that are trickling out there, which had to formulate the plan of a dedicated patrol for the west end business district alone. So those type of operations, as well as the large size of these businesses that are coming, the Costco's, the Super Target, the largest Target in the St. Louis area, as well as some other things that will be coming. Dearborn's, we're already working with them on security analysis and plans as we speak. Most of the other development that Mr. Rose is speaking of on Delmar, the West End. So having as a chess place, as you say, you have to kind of start navigating, okay, that's on the western end of our district. I mean, it's literally on our border with 170 and other jurisdictions. They're not going to provide that public safety mechanism and those support and those resources. So we have to kind of plan for those avenues.
Any other, did that respond to your question?
You know, it's sort of, because I do see that you have a Delmar 170 plan that you're going to have. What I mean is you're going to have patrol there. Delmar 170 is what one of the things that you have listed here. So I'm wondering why we can't do the same thing with Olive opposed to looking at a satellite, do the same that we're doing at Delmar 170.
I'll let Chief respond to that, but I believe that has more to do with the magnitude. The number of people that will, we're very proud to have the largest Target, within the region. But that comes with some challenges as well that we just need to be prepared for. We simply don't have those types of businesses at this point at Delmar and I-170. Let's hope that we do eventually, and we'll be in a position of making adjustments. But right now we don't. We are certain though that we're going to have those businesses at Olive and I-170. Is that?
That's exactly right. We're planning for the future for the Delmar area and we're getting prepared. But as is right now, there's a dedicated patrol that is specific to Olive businesses right now. As those Delmar businesses and those buildings keep going up and I guess coming into play, then that is going to be modified as well. But right now, literally the Olive Business District, as well as the Delmar Loop Business District, they have dedicated patrols from the public safety mechanism.
The only comments I would make, and by all means, Mr. Rose, if you want to reply back to any of them, please do, is I would want to remind all of my colleagues that we do have the excitement of 170 and Olive. We also have the responsibility of the Loop, which is our, for lack of a better phrase, our downtown. And I think the Loop itself is probably going to have to reinvent itself at some time. I think the business owners are saying that. I think the landowners are saying that. And I think we'll have a role in that. I'm not sure exactly what that role will be, but clearly, not only do we have property there, but it's our responsibility. So I think the Loop is the one that's going to be going through some gyrations. I also would ask my colleagues to, in this particular 2025, pay attention, I think, to the parks. I think our parks have had we've had turnover in leadership, and I think we've got to have some attention to the parks. I think our citizens utilize our parks immensely, and I think we have a nice reputation at attracting our business. I think we also can soften our edges by making sure we have as many amenities available in our parks as we possibly can, including those programs that the city manager spoke about. When I look at the work plan, though, I do actually think that this work plan is actually an awful lot about basic government and blocking and tackling. There's an awful lot of things that are probably just getting cleaned up and moved forward, which is probably time for that to occur, and I appreciate it. I would also ask my colleagues to give particular time and consideration to the idea of us consolidating some of our commissions. We simply have more commissions than everybody around us. It's hard for us to staff them. It's hard for us to get people to sit on them. And there's nothing glitzy about this at all. But at some point in time, we really ought to tackle this. and take a look at some of these commissions literally emerging or with all due respect, some simply going away. It's probably that time. So, and then finally, the partner with other jurisdictions, those of you who may be watching online, we already participate in SLATE, which is the insurance trust. We already participate in buying our salt and commodities through other jurisdictions. I think it is incumbent upon us to look to our neighbors around us and see if there are ways that we can either generate revenue or save costs. So to that, I say thank you very much to the city manager. Are there any other questions of Mr. Rose or anyone else? Hearing none, we will adjourn until 6:30.